Hello and welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm Sandy Wrobel, your host for this program. We have a wonderful guest with us tonight who is new to our program here in Channel 23. Her name is Ilia Regini, and she is a healing food chef. And she has had a career prior to this where she taught Italian for 16 years in a public high school, and she also teaches and knows Spanish. She changed careers, but she also keeps teaching Italian at a community college over in New York State. And I met her, I believe, this past April in Terrytown when I was helping Cindy Miller do a fair over there. So I'd like to welcome Ilia. Hi, Ilia.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Practical
Thank you
Talk
very much.
Time. And can you give a little bit of background to our viewers about how you went from being an Italian teacher to being a healing food chef? And I do know that you are very involved in cooking food for yourself, and that you're very passionate about it.
Yes, I actually enjoyed doing it for years. I was just cooking in my own house, and then I realized there was a little change in my career, and I said, I think I'm going to start looking into this a little bit further. And one thing led to another. I started out at a vegan cooking school. From there, I went to a vegetarian school. From there, I went to raw food training. I also trained as in nutrition, and also became a certified yoga teacher as well.
So you have a wide background, and you just didn't decide, well, I'm going to call it healing foods. You actually have taken many courses and workshops and spent a great deal of time educating yourself about what makes food healthy.
Yes, I do.
And you mentioned vegan and vegetarian, and I think maybe some people might think they're the same, and they're not. Could you just briefly fill people in a little bit about what makes them a little different from each other?
Okay, so a vegan basically doesn't consume any eggs or any milk products, whereas the vegetarian has that in their diet. The vegan is strictly pure, pretty much pure fruit, vegetables, seeds, and nuts.
Do you think it's a healthy diet, a vegan diet?
I used to think so myself. I used to think it was the purest diet that one could follow, and therefore I was a vegan for 6 months until I realized that I was starting to crave sugar, and I also noticed that I felt tired all the time. So I started getting a book on amino acids and did some further research and felt that I needed to include dairy, high-quality dairy and eggs, and once I had those in my diet again, I felt much better.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. I have a cousin's daughter who got married, and she had a vegan reception, but I think she hired a caterer who was really not vegan, and it was the worst food I ever had. It tasted like cardboard. But I've heard people say that it can be tasty, but I think what you're saying is very interesting, that they cut too many things out that are essential to their diet. Now, in your own diet, are you vegetarian, or do you also eat meat? And yes or why? And should everyone eat meat, or not everyone needs to?
Well, that's a difficult question to really answer because everybody's system works a little bit differently. Now, myself, I've chosen to include small amounts of organic grass-fed meat and certain high-quality oily fish, such as sardines and mackerel. And that's the diet that works for me. I believe in using the meats and the fish in small amounts as almost like a garnish. No more than 25 to 30% of the meal should be protein.
Mm-hmm. You didn't mention salmon. I've heard and read that that's supposed to be very healthy too for the omega-3 fatty, whatever they're called. And I've also read that the farm-raised, when they're farm-raised, they lose a lot of that. They were better off getting the wild salmon. Do you know about that and can tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, that's correct. The wild salmon is definitely the salmon. There's Pacific salmon, there's Atlantic salmon. The salmon, when I had gone to take a trip to Alaska, I learned all about the different varieties of salmon. And there's an expensive cut called coho salmon, which is a very deep, dark red, and it's quite tasty.
I've never seen that around the markets here.
Usually they sell them at places like Whole Foods, but not all the time. Your high-end markets will have something of that, but very, very good. Coho salmon is a very high quality.
It's interesting. Well, way back in, I believe it was 1971 or 72, I went to Alaska for 2 weeks. And then in 72, I did graduate work at the University of Washington in Seattle. And that's where I first had salmon in Blake Island. And it was done by the Native American Indians. Took a ferry over. And they really had the open fire and the cedar stakes around it with the salmon. And to this day, I can remember that and the fresh berry pie. I mean, here it is like 40 years later, and I still vividly in my mind remember all that.
That's wonderful.
I didn't know that you had been to Alaska. We'll have to talk about that another time. There are many things that you have here on the list of questions that could be asked. No particular order here. And I've heard about acidity and alkalinity, and I believe you said that which one would be better. And how would I know if I'm acidic or alkaline? I mean, would I take a piece of litmus paper and put it in my mouth? How do I know? Or what would I eat?
Okay, I'm always talking about the body should be leaning more alkaline. It's based on the pH scale between 0 and 14, which 6.5, 6.2 is average. So you don't want to be too alkaline, because then you're going to be very jittery and you're not going to feel grounded. And if you're too acidic, that's pretty much the time when degenerative disease and illness can take over. So in order for you to keep your body more alkaline, you want to try to include fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet. And a lot of these fruits and vegetables, such as coconut, fresh pineapple, avocado, have what are called neutralizing minerals: calcium, magnesium, potassium, natural sodium, and these are good to have as reserve minerals, because if your body's too acidic, what happens is your body's going to go into the bones and it's going to steal the neutralizing minerals, because the body wants to be alkaline. And by going into the bones and stealing them, what happens is your body is going to eventually, the bones are going to get fragile, and it could cause osteoporosis.
Which many people have. Is there any correlation with cartilage or just with the bones?
Basically, the bones, the muscles, cartilage, it's all very fragile. There's just a fine line in between them.
Mm-hmm. Now, how would you know whether you're alkaline or acidic? In other words, vinegar is certainly an acid, and we use it in dressings. And would it be dangerous to have too much vinegar in our dressings, or am I thinking about this the wrong way?
Well, basically, the acid foods tend to be meats, potatoes, grains, legumes, sugar, floury products, chocolate, candies. Those are more pretty much, we need, of course, to consume different kinds of fish and grains and products, but we have to be careful to make sure that we have an overflow of natural, fresh fruits and vegetables on a daily basis to keep that alkaline body. I had heard you say before about the litmus paper, and that's correct. I have a little bottle myself at home, and you certainly can test that with a little bit of your own saliva early in the morning, or you can also do a urine test as well and make sure that it comes out to about, like I said, around 6.2 is a good, it keeps it pretty much neutral.
And I have to admit, I was just trying to be facetious with the litmus paper.
Oh.
Like from chemistry. I didn't know that you really could use it, but I'm thinking, I thought maybe you had to go to the doctors and have blood work done or some other type of work.
No,
so it would be fairly easy for someone to do at home.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, and I know when I met you in April, I believe it was, or May. I think it was April, wasn't it?
I believe it was April.
Yeah. You had said that you also go into homes sometimes and cook for people or show them how to prepare
That's correct.
food. Can you give, I know you can't go through the whole, every little thing that you do, but could you give an example of, supposing I call you and say, oh, Ilia, I want to be healthier, and you would say, yes, I'll come over and cook for you. Do you go through questions, a questionnaire to find out what I'm already eating or what I need, or how would you decide what would be the best for me? I don't think that you would give necessarily the same food to every client.
Yes, that's correct. We have a conversation by phone or by email, and I get a feel for if it's for illness reasons, or is it just for you just want to start eating healthy. And then I get an idea if there's any allergies, your likes, your dislikes, and then I give some samples of some entrees that I could prepare, perhaps a soup, a salad, and I mention I either can do the grocery shopping or the client can do the grocery shopping. They'll go out, they'll get the ingredients. I'll come over with my knife kit, and we basically pretty much start from there. Some people pretty much know how to saute already, but I go through the knives and I chiffonade the vegetables, do the various cuts. We cook in the pot, and the beans. Sometimes people are in a hurry, so I suggest buying a different canned beans, but preferably it's better to soak your beans overnight to rid them of phytic acid.
Rather than buying the canned version.
That's correct.
I'd also like to point out to our viewers that we are live calling tonight, and the number is 203-792-4101, and Ilia would be glad to answer any of your questions, or maybe she said something that you would like to have further explained. We'll be talking about many things. Do not hesitate to call. We'll just keep chatting away here about the various areas of food, and I'm sure Ilia could go on forever and ever because just her list of questions here, each question has, I'm sure, many deep answers to it. So please do call in if you have specific questions about how to deal with your health or what you think you'd like to know more about. Why would I want to soak my beans rather than buy the canned version, preferably?
Preferably because they taste fresher. I also suggest to take the dried beans, dried organic beans, which are they're very economical. It's an economical way of getting your protein, and it's you need to put them in a bowl. You need to fill them up about an inch above them and let them sit overnight. And that will rid them of the phytates, the phytic acid that are in the beans. And if you put a little piece of kombu, which is a type of seaweed, just about postage size stamp put in there, it will also make them much more digestible when you eat them.
And what kind of acid did you say is in them that removes?
Phytic acid,
phytates. What is phytic acid? I've never heard of it.
Phytic acid is just a different kind of acid that comes in the beans, and if you don't soak them, you tend to. Some people have difficulty and produce gas in the intestines.
Mm-hmm. Now, I remember when I was young, if my mother made something with beans, she would soak them, and then she would drain the water and put fresh water in. And I would always say, why do you dump the water out? Why can't you just cook it in the water it was in? Is it because of this acid that's moved out, or?
Yes, it's best to soak them in the soaking liquid, and then it's best to put them in a pot with fresh filtered water to cook with a little touch of sea salt.
Filtered water. Yes, because I know in speaking with you over the phone, you will not drink tap water that is chlorinated.
That's correct.
I think, some people do have filters on their kitchen sink, and I know you go beyond that to your shower. Can you tell a little bit about why you don't like the chlorinated water for drinking and bathing?
Well, because the chlorine has an ingredient in it that's actually quite toxic to the body. And even though we use chlorine a lot in this country for keeping waters safe, it's just not a healthy thing to be taking in. And what happens when you bathe in it, you take even more, believe it or not, because all of us take quite a lengthy shower, and our skin is taking that in, and it really dries the skin out. It's very, very drying. And if you've ever noticed when people swim in swimming pools, their skin can look quite dry and feel quite dry.
Yeah, and they would be much more heavily chlorinated.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I believe you also told me that on your shower at home, you have a vitamin C filter.
Yes, that's the company that I chose to go with. It has I'm not.
Oh, it's not vitamin C itself inside the filter?
Yes, actually, it has a little bit of the vitamin C that we know as the vitamin, and somehow it's mixed with some other combination, and it really does take out the chlorine. You can actually taste the water, and you won't get that chlorinated effect. It totally will take it out.
Until I spoke with you, I've never heard of someone having a shower filter. I know many people have them in their kitchens.
Yes.
Or they'll have a pitcher of water that they have a filter in.
That's correct.
Yes. Very, very interesting. So you're kind of people would consider you like a fanatic with the way that you personally eat and drink and.
That's true, but
Yes.
I feel that I was put on the earth for this reason, and I feel it too strongly. I need to try to educate other people so they feel as good as I have felt.
Mm-hmm. When did you actually start doing things like this, the way that you're eating? Were you brought up like that, which I kind of doubt, just because I think people are more into these things today. And what was your diet like as a young child? What did your mother make for you? And where did you kind of turn into these healthy food issues?
Well, growing up, being that my dad was from Italy and my mom was of German extraction, we always had healthy food on the table. Everything was made from scratch. But pretty much I had a meat and potato kind of diet. And I remember we'd have some vegetables. But I remember that as a child, I remembered that I would have periodic difficulties with constipation periodically. And I remember also when I was in my early 20s, I had a lot of difficulty with yeast infections, recurrent yeast infections, and never really made the correlation until much later in life that it was definitely connected to what I ate.
So we are what we eat.
Oh, yes.
So did you start reading and gradually start bringing different things into your diet?
Yes, I bought a couple of books on yeast, the yeast syndrome, and a couple of other ones, and read them from cover to cover. And one thing just led to another, and I just basically found myself getting more and more involved with healthy eating and nutrition, and here I am maybe 20 years later, and I am totally in awe with it. It just pretty much is who I am, morning, noon, and night. I love to talk about it. I love making it. I love cooking. I love helping other people. It just makes me feel great.
Now, when you were dealing with people that you're educating and they want to be healthy or whatever, I don't think it would be easy for people. You can't just suddenly say, well, tomorrow I'm completely changing my diet and the way I live. So what do you do with that? Is there some kind of coaching or counseling, or as people go through I would think of it as maybe a process?
Yes, yes. We do that gradually. I work with clients usually for an hour at a time, and we discuss things very slowly. I will give them a drink. I will give them some herbal tea to try out. Ask them what they like, if they like it. I may have some lacto-fermented. I make my own lacto-fermented cabbage. I may give them a little sample to try. But we usually start very slowly, and I tell them, don't feel bad if you find yourself going to the old habits. We all do that. We all have our old habits. It's okay. But it's going to be it's going to take some time to make some changes. So each day you make a few changes.
Now, I do know at the Awakening Fair where I met you, you had a green drink in the blender, which you had samples for people to try. It was the end of the day, and went over and tried it. And in fact, it looked very similar to a drink that I used to make way back, well, probably now closer to 20 years ago. I'd gone to the Atkins Center in Manhattan, and I'd met with Dr. Atkins, but then after the initial meeting, it was other doctors there. And it wasn't part of his program, but a doctor had said, oh, one of his patients had this green drink. And I remember I would have it when I was teaching. I would make it and bring it in, and they would say, ooh, because it looks funny. It didn't look like the stuff you made, almost like a pea soup. It's green. It didn't bother me, and I said, oh, it's very tasty. But I think some people are put off by the way something looks.
Yes, that's true. Of course, things are changing a lot nowadays. But a lot of people mistaken my green smoothie for wheatgrass. And wheatgrass is a little bit different. You consume it in almost maybe like, I want to say, 1/8 of a cup at a time, very small amounts. But the green smoothie, once you taste it, it's velvety, it's creamy. It took me a while to come up with the right proportions and the right non-milks to get it just right consistency. It also is it has its own sweetness. It's got the little sweetness from the banana and the coconut water, which makes a nice flavoring.
That was one of the things I was intrigued with, is that you make a lot of your own recipes based upon what you know, your knowledge that you have. And how long does it usually take to perfect a recipe? I imagine it must be like a test kitchen. You keep trying different things.
Yes, that's true. With the green smoothie, I would say maybe over a series of weeks.
Oh, not a day. I was thinking maybe a day of weeks.
Be a series of weeks to just figure out how much. I put a little capsaicin in there from the serrano pepper. Now, sometimes I have to be a little careful because the general public finds that to be a little bit, the heat is a little too hot. So I sometimes will leave it out, or I'll put in very little. The sea salt, I may put in a pinch, maybe a little bit more. It just takes a little time to get it just the way you want that. You need to work with it.
I know, more particularly in the winter, a lot of times I'll add some super hot, not a lot of it, but super hot cayenne pepper. If I'm coming down with a cold or have congestion, it seems to help.
Yes, that's correct.
So, and I did try your smoothie at the fair, and it was very tasty. What are the types of, now everything you make is not a smoothie.
No, not at all.
And are smoothies supposed to be like, would you have a smoothie as a meal, or is it just like a snack? Or how many times a day do you think people should eat? I know you said you don't go out to eat, because I said, gee, when you're traveling, what do you do? And you said you personally bring your own food.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I just have gotten very used to certain high quality flavors, and I just feel that, not just myself, but I just feel that everybody here on the planet should be enjoying these delicious flavorings. And after a while, cooking can become quick if you know how to do it. After a while, it gets repetitious, and once you know how to put a few things together, the ingredients start to repeat themselves, and it's not as difficult as one might think.
You also do cooking classes for people, or?
Yes, I do. So I do offer that as well.
That's very interesting. And I know you also did, there's something here, it says, what are the benefits of consuming raw fruits and vegetables on a daily basis? That means not cooked, not steamed. So why would that be a bit healthier than something that would be steamed or sauteed? I know I don't like vegetables overly done, but I kind of prefer them. I'll eat some raw, but I like them cooked a little bit.
Well, because the digestive enzymes, the fresh fruits and vegetables have digestive enzymes, and the enzymes are very healthy, and they proliferate the cells with oxygen. And if they're cooked above 115 degrees, they will not have the same effect. However, working with people that have irritable bowel syndrome and any of the ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, I suggest not having so much raw, because it's better off for people with those kind of difficulties to have cooked fruits, as in apple sauces and pear sauces and cooked dried fruits and that sort of thing.
Well, I think as I'm getting older too, sometimes it's better to have a little bit more cooked than raw.
Yes.
And I want to remind our viewers again, if you have questions, don't worry about what we're talking about. Do call if you want to ask a question. Ilia will be very happy to answer questions for you or to explain further if you want to know more about what she's been saying. What are the superfoods? It doesn't mean the supermarket, I assume.
No, the superfoods are very interesting nowadays. There seems to be quite a few, and they need to be used in very minute amounts, such as chia seeds and flax seeds. They seem to be the hot commodity now on the market. Everybody seems to be talking about them. Flax seeds are very small, little brown seeds that are very, very good in your diet. You should definitely include them to have the essential omega fatty acids, which we always hear about so much. They have the essential fatty acids, the omega-3s, and they can either...
I'm sorry. Practical talk time. I'm sorry.
Hi, I was just wondering what food group has the most alkaline foods?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
What food group has the most alkaline foods?
Those would be all the fresh vegetables and fruits.
Fruits and vegetables?
Yes, that's correct.
So what about like juices and stuff like that?
Yes, your own juices made fresh, that would be beautiful for that. Absolutely.
What about dairy products? Are they considered alkaline or acidic?
They're actually in between. They're in between. There's the dairy, a good quality yogurt that has the lactobacilli, the acidophilus, are important. We need to have those, so they're right on the borderline between acidic and alkaline.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for calling. I thought I heard something, and then I thought it was just out there, and then I realized it was here. Again, if you have questions, please call 203-792-4101. And speaking about juices, you were talking about making your own juice. What would people gain by making their own juice rather than just going up and buying a carton of juice?
Well, because the flavors are just phenomenal. Once you start making your own fresh juice, there's no going back to the bottles. Knudsen, we know that all these different varieties, they put out wonderful, wonderful products. But once you start making your own, it's a little addictive, actually, in a good way.
Yes, and I've done juicing, and ironically what happens though is that when you're not feeling well, then you don't have the stamina to be doing it. Then I wind up buying something at the grocery store, which I know would be better the other way, but you know when you're not feeling well.
That's correct.
But it is true, the juices that you make really do taste a lot better. And I know in the booklet, in a juicing book that I have, they say you should drink it within 15 minutes because of the enzymes.
That's correct. I had one of my clients say to me, oh, gee, maybe perhaps I can make it the night before and I can save some time in the morning.
Yes.
And I said, gee, that sounds like a really great idea, but you won't benefit from having the active digestive enzymes, which need to be drunk within the first 15, 20 minutes.
Right. I didn't do that because I had read, but I had the exact idea. I thought, you know, why not make a quart of it, just like you'd buy it? And then I did read that, you know, you the best quality is to drink it within 15 minutes.
That's correct.
Yeah, and it is enjoyable. You said that I think you went up to Maine as well, and you did a special program up there?
Yes, I did. I was the chef of Sewell House Yoga Retreat in northern Maine for 5.5 months. And I prepared the healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner on a daily basis for the guests of the yoga retreat with all organic and our locally sourced ingredients.
Now, I would assume the yoga centers probably would be all vegetarian and no meat.
That's correct.
Can you just give an example of what a particular day might be like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yes. In the breakfast would be served around 10 a.m., so I would make sure I have a nice egg scramble, and in the egg scramble I would always have onions, garlic, some sort of chiffonaded greens in there, little tomato, a little bit of squash, and then I would also have a hot cooked grain cereal such as amaranth or teff or quinoa or sweet brown rice. And there were sometimes some days that I would even make a savory. Instead of the sweet brown rice, it would be just brown rice with seaweed. It would be a savory breakfast, as the Japanese have sometimes in Japan. And I also ground my flax seeds and chia seeds to add to the quality yogurt that we would serve every morning. And then we would have a breather. Lunch would be a little bit lighter. For lunch, I would be serving a nice green salad with either an Asian vinaigrette or a sherry vinaigrette. I would have a grain salad such as spelt berries, or a cold brown rice salad or quinoa salad with a lime dressing. I would also serve usually a bean salad, such as a kidney bean salad or chickpea salad. And dinner would be considered, there were a variety of things I made. I made spelt pizza once in a while. I would make stuffed peppers with a quinoa filling. I would make collard greens with a red pepper sauce stuffed with a wild rice. I would also make zucchini rice burgers with a Dijon mustard sauce. I would also serve stir-fried tempeh in a pineapple. So there was always a variety of delicious dishes to choose from.
Very, very interesting. And I know that besides your interest with cooking, you are also in the process of writing a book.
Yes,
about,
that's correct.
Your life. You want to tell us about that briefly? And we know that it will be a while before it's done, but what is behind that? Why a book? And it's not a cookbook, right?
It's not actually a cookbook. It's actually a combination of a memoir. It's written in memoir, but yet still it's self-help. But there's a story that's involved. And it basically follows my life when I thought my whole life went down the tube, so to speak. And I started and about what did I do? What was I going to do about that? And that was pretty much chapter 1. Chapter 2 goes into my chefing at Sewell House and the different kind of people that I had met and the connections I made, and made a connection with one of our guests was a lawyer from one of the local areas. She had invited me to her home and said she basically wanted me to teach her everything I know. She wanted to learn how to cook and make healthy food for her family. So I was there, and that's a whole chapter in itself. And then I go out to raw food training school out in Oklahoma.
So is this now chapter 3?
This is actually chapter 4.
Oh, chapter 4.
And chapter 5 brings me back to the New York metro area. And there's a variety of things that are materializing as we speak.
Right, yes. And I know one of the things, some people may remember Stephen Shepard. He's been on many times, both Practical Talk Time here and these days with Barb Keidel, and he was involved in the Green Fest. And you are going to be a contributing writer for The Good Word. This is one he had out for Greenfest, and it really is not, it's just a preliminary one, and you're going to be a contributor to this, and it will be starting, he believes, around October. It will be a monthly, and then I think he said going into weekly. So can you tell us what your role will be in the good word? I think I said good news. It's the good word. And it'll be, distributed, I think, from Litchfield County, Fairfield, and I think he's also working down probably in Putnam and Westchester. He's trying to get it lined up, right, where this will be distributed. And I know that you already have written an article and submitted it.
Yes, I did.
Not to give the whole article away, but can you tell us what your role will be?
Basically, that particular article is about including nutrient-dense ingredients in the diet. And that's basically what I'm all about in a nutshell, is trying to get people to eat ingredients that are just incredibly loaded with nutrients. And that's the key. That is the key right there. And I'm trying to spread the word about which ingredients and how to do it and how to make these dishes and meals absolutely fabulous and tasty and delicious, and your weight will stabilize and you'll have more energy and it'll just be great.
So besides being on our show, people will, beginning in October, at a monthly basis and then eventually going to a weekly basis, you'll be having articles that you'll be submitting.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, if I want to contact you, do you have a website people could go to see some of your work or anything that you have on there?
Yes, I do. It's www.nourishourbody.com, and the 6th tab of that is my blog. And the blog was started last year when I was up at Sewell House Yoga Retreat. Shows a lot of my photos of my dishes, and it also gives a lot of nutritional advice as well.
So people could be anywhere, and if they're not in the area, they could go to your website, whether they're here or far away, and get information from you about how to eat better.
Absolutely.
Now, what about specific ailments? Do you have special diets for anything, or do you have to be careful? And I think the viewers would need to know, too, that if they have an ailment or whatever, if you're speaking about it, they need to see, of course, their own medical practitioner and check things out. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I just want to make that clear. So
I don't encourage using supplements on my end. I will let the doctor take care of that. I'm more about getting the ingredients from the supplements that I choose are actually food, the actual food itself. And I'm a firm believer that if we take the right combinations of the foods and we use them in the right way, I think they can be very valuable.
Yes, and I know that earlier when we were talking about alkalinity and acidity, you talked about, I think it was if it's too alkaline, you could get very jittery and hyper.
That's correct.
And
spacey as well.
And a thought went through my mind. We were both in education. I'm retired, and you had spent 16 years teaching Italian. And when I first started teaching in 1967, there was no such thing as HDD, hyperactivity disorder. And that has become more and more prevalent, very prevalent. And many children are put on Ritalin. And when I was the end of my career, there were 2 large metal trays filled with little cups, most of them with Ritalin, and a lot of inhalers and whatever. And lunch hour, children would be lined up out the nurse's office in line because she would have to write down that so-and-so's getting their medication and have it out. That was non-existent when I had started. At the end, it was very, very prominent. Do you think there could be a correlation with maybe the additives in our food today as compared to what they were years ago or what people are eating?
Absolutely. a lot of the ingredients of the processed foods that people eat today are loaded with all kinds of fillers and preservatives and unnatural things, even candies and cookies. And if it has ingredients, you want to try to stay away from it. That's my answer.
If it has ingredients, the wrong ingredients. Yeah, I notice more and more things are saying that they're organic or whatever, and that they're going towards that because it's becoming, people are becoming more aware. But I have an interesting story. I thought I was going to go to a picnic last Saturday, and I didn't because the weather was just horrendous with the rain. And they were going to have hamburgers or hot dogs. You could bring your own meat. And I was in a store, grocery store, and I saw this little filet mignon, tiny one with bacon around it. And I thought, that would be kind of good. It'd be easy to take and whatever. And I turned it over, and it had sodium nitrate, which I wouldn't expect to be there if it's not a lunch meat or whatever, which is not healthy. It had so many chemicals, and I wound up not buying it. I put it back. And when I looked at it, I thought, I bet I could buy this, put it in my refrigerator, and 6 months later, it's going to look just as red and beautiful. It looked beautiful in the package. And normally I would never buy meat that's packaged like that, but I thought, oh, this looks like something easy just to bring to have grilled.
It's all about fooling the customer into thinking, making it look pretty.
Oh, it looked wonderful.
And attractive and bright red. Tuna, the same thing. The tuna is not really always that color. It's given color to make it look that beautiful, that bright red that you see. But it's
fresh, like a fresh piece of tuna?
Like a fresh piece of tuna. A lot of people aren't aware of that.
I'm not aware of it.
But that's the case.
So what do? They process it before it's shipped out?
They put some kind of a coloring in there to make it look extra red. And the same thing sometimes with certain cuts of salmon. Not the salmon that I was mentioning earlier, the lower cuts salmon. It makes it a little bit pinker looking.
And what would the dyes do?
The dyes are going to basically make them look nice, but God knows what they're doing to your brain and the cells in your body.
Because I think some have been outlawed, right, that they used to use?
Yes.
I forget the exact numbers, but
right.
And I know many things do have, when you look at it, the food coloring added to it.
There are a number of places nowadays where they're trying to really get people to learn about choosing grass-fed organic cuts of meat.
I was ordering for a while. It was the bison, which under federal law has to be grass-fed, no hormones, no whatever, just naturally raised. And the reason I stopped is because you had it also with the order. It came with like hot dogs, which were beef and bison, which was fine, but they had too much salt for me. So I stopped. However, I have to say, when I ate the bison, I felt better and also lost weight because they were 4 ounces. It was some people say, oh, bison. It tasted really very much like the beef. If I didn't know the difference, if I didn't know, you could tell me it was beef, I wouldn't know the difference.
Yes.
As far as taste go. But it was far superior to like the hamburger you just buy in the grocery store.
Yes, those wild cuts of deer, bison, and there's other buffalo, and those are lamb. Those cuts are very, very good. They have a lot of nutrients in it. And one of the things that I learned from studying the amino acids book is very difficult to get all of our amino acids from just a plant-based diet. There's certain amino acids like methionine that are very difficult to get. So I've come to the conclusion that I eat very small, tiny amounts of meat, but a lot of beans, and I find that it works the best for me.
But you're very choosing the type of meat that you're eating.
Oh, yes. It must be organic, must be grass-fed. I usually get it at a farm.
I know it is becoming more popular. I have a cousin, in eastern Connecticut that they ordered, oh, somebody raises lambs, and she said they had one that was cut up and frozen that they're going to be eating. But she said, ironically, the man who raises the lamb and sells it is a vegetarian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah, but that's an example. And I think when you were mentioning some other meats, I'm thinking like venison. I've had it just a few times. I wouldn't know how to cook it, and I think there's a technique, right, to some of these meats to have it not too hot, or maybe it has to be really hot or slow cooked.
Sometimes you want to marinate them in a good marinade, and then lightly cook them after that.
But that would be part of the problem, I think. I might go to a store and see something and think, gee, I'd like to try that, but I don't want to spend the money because I really don't know how to prepare it. I mean, the normal cookbook isn't dealing with that type of preparation.
Being that you talked about the cookbook reminds me that my favorite book is called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon. And she goes back to the traditional diet. I'm a firm believer myself. I'm starting to see that the traditional diet makes sense for me. And basically, the whole premise there is that you're soaking your grains, you're soaking your beans, you're using a little bit of grass-fed meats and some raw cheeses occasionally, and some high-quality yogurts, and your vegetables, fruits, and a little bit of lacto-fermented condiments.
And I did hear, it's probably about more than a month ago now on the radio, that it was either University of Pittsburgh or Harvard University that did a study. They gave a chicken dinner to a group of people, and then they did a blood test for cholesterol, triglycerides. Second night, they gave them the same exact meal, except they added different spices, like Indian spices. They mentioned a few. It wasn't it was on the radio. I don't know the whole study. And by adding the spices, the cholesterol and triglyceride levels went down. And I do know that after we have this live show, we'll be taping with Usha Kumar, the producer of the show. She'll be the host, and she'll be discussing spices with you. So that's something we want to tell the audience, that next Tuesday night from 9:30 to 10, they can watch another show with Ilia that will be at least partially about spices. So that'll be a little bit more specific probably. So we're going to kind of just skip over that part for this show. And corn and soy. You said the dangers of consuming corn and soy. I'm not a big corn eater, but in the summer I like to have it when it's fresh corn on the cob.
Yes, it's just that the corn and the soy industry in the United States, a lot of it is becoming genetically modified.
Oh, it's nothing wrong with the food, it's what's being done to it?
Right. A lot of it's becoming genetically modified, and therefore, if you can still find your corn grown organically, well, then that's just fine. But the soy and the corn, they're using so much of it, and they're using it to cook our foods with. When you work in a restaurant and you see what's going on in the kitchens, a lot of them are not even using any olive oil. They're using primarily a cheap version of corn or soy. And also detrimental is that they're very high in omega-6s.
Oh, omega-6 is not good, but 3 is?
Yes, this is the thing that a lot of people don't know. The omega-3s and the omega-6s are supposed to be even. They were in our ancestors' diet. And nowadays, because of the standard American diet, the omega-6s are way up here, and the omega-3s are way down here. And that's another problem why there's so many illnesses. They need to be balanced. And so the omega-6s, you don't really want too many omega-6s, because the omega-6s are in lots of ingredients. So we're working on the omega-3s, which are found in flax and chia primarily, and the omega-6s that you need to stay away from are the polyunsaturated fats, or the trans fats.
Okay, we have a call. Practical Talk Time. Would you like to speak with Ilia?
Yeah, I wanted to know what oils have omega-6.
The oils that have omega-6 are safflower, sunflower, and some canola oils. Also corn and soy.
The olive oil doesn't?
Olive oil does not. Olive oil is one of your best bet for oils. Also, coconut oil is very, very good for cooking, baking with, primarily more baking. I would suggest an olive oil for your everyday cooking.
So I can cook a fried egg, I can make a fried egg in olive oil?
Yes, that's what I would suggest. Not extra virgin. You don't need an extra virgin dark green because that's wasteful. You might as well just get a very plain olive oil and save the extra virgin for dressing your salads with.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for
Bye.
calling.
Bye-bye.
So the what about things like walnut oil? I know in some of those supermarkets I go to, they have a wide variety of oils, and I wouldn't even know maybe it's for the flavor?
Yes, walnut oils, hazelnut oil, almond oils, pistachio oils. They're specialty oils, and you notice that they're usually sold in small amounts.
Yes.
Because they go rancid quite quickly.
Oh, is that why?
So if you need to use them, get them in a very small quantity, make your dessert or make the food you're making, and that's it. Try to use them quickly because they will spoil.
Now, are they good with the omega-3s, or they're just a specialty, or?
They have a few omega-6 in there, but they're not as high in omega-3s. The omega-3s, the ones you can get it, like I mentioned before, the flax seed or the flax oil. And now the chia seeds are also quite high in omega-3 as well.
Mm-hmm. So those other specialty oils would be the ability to flavor a salad dressing, or
Yes.
that would be more of the use of it.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, I thought I heard the phone, but it's not. Oh, yes, it is. Practical talk time. Would you like to speak with Ilia?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, hello. I love the program. It's very informative and interesting. I heard you mention a book called, I believe it was Nourishing Tradition, but I didn't catch the author's name.
Sally Fallon.
Oh, is that Fallon?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for the program.
Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask?
No, I don't. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling. That's good that people are interested in the cookbook that you mentioned, where they can get more information. What other things do you have planned? You're writing a book. You're going to be a contributing contributing author for the Good Word. And anything else that you're doing?
Well, I continue to lecture in my area of Westchester County. I give lectures at various locations, demos, detoxifying, learning how to detoxify, what are the best ways to do it. There's different kinds of juices and soups that I will be conducting, green smoothies, basically a lot of new things, Every day is presenting something new for me.
Right, and just talking with you, I find that, and even what you've said, that you'd like to try making new recipes.
Absolutely.
Now, do you just try them yourself, or do you have your friends try them out and say, hey, how do you like the taste of this?
Well, unfortunately, most of my friends are around the country. They're not too close, although I do have a dear friend that's near the Hartford area. She usually comes over maybe to visit me every couple of weeks, so she'll try my food. And she's a great fan of my food.
I actually have only had the smoothie, but I know everything that when you talk about it sounds like you're not just putting it, because a lot of times I think the problem is you might try something healthy, but because you don't know how to prepare it, we don't know how to prepare it or what to do with it, it might not taste that good. I know I've tried quinoa, and I thought I really don't like the flavor of it, but probably I could have done something else with it.
Yes, I've heard that several times. What happens with quinoa sometimes is people tend to overcook it. They'll put it on the stove and they'll walk away and they'll come back and it's overcooked and it gets all mushy. And you want to make sure that you catch it right when there's just a little bit of liquid left, a little tiny bit. Then you turn off the pot and then you drain it and let it cool off. And you can put it in the refrigerator and let it chill for about an hour. Then take it back out and add a little bit of olive oil, nice lime, fresh lime in there, little cilantro or a little parsley if you're not fond of cilantro, and some seasonings.
I'm laughing because I didn't overcook it, but when it was cooked, I just put it on the plate and ate it, and it didn't taste that good. But you're saying also to cool it first.
Yes, absolutely.
Why would you cool it first?
Well, because the grain is so much easier to work with once it's cooled off. It just kind of like, it goes right through your hand. It's very easy to work with. And when you are a chef, you want to use your gloves and work and put the flavorings, get the flavors in there and mix everything well.
Yes, I guess when I tried to unflavor it, it wasn't the thing to do, and it wasn't cooled, and they didn't have any direction like that in the package except how long to cook it. That I did correctly, but that was the end of it. We only have about 1 or 2 minutes left, and would you like to add anything else that I haven't asked you about? I know you've got many things here that I didn't ask you about. We've talked about many different aspects of your career, and you'll be doing the spice program after this, and we have 1 minute.
I'm just concerned that a lot of people need to try to think about getting lacto-fermented into their diets. I think this is overlooked in the United States at this point, but we're starting to get involved with it. So what I mean by that is be sure that you're eating a high-quality organic yogurt or some fermented cabbage salad or some kimchi or radishes or pickled radishes or anything that's pickled. It's very, very, very good for digestion, the intestinal flora.
Yes, and I just went to a program on Korea, and I said, oh, this is spicy, and the Korean woman said, you're eating it wrong. You take a little bit with your other food. And our time actually is up, and we thank you very much for being here. I'd like to have you back on, which we will, with Usha, and people can watch you on Tuesday night for the Spice Show. Thank you for watching the program tonight with our healing chef, Ilia Regini, and she is going to be working on a book, and I'm sure we can have her back and really get into other things more specifically. Thank you for watching.